The smell is wood smoke and wet plaster. A woman is climbing down a wooden ladder into her own home, a small clay lamp balanced in one hand. Below her, beneath the platform where her family sleeps, her grandmother is buried. The bones rest a hand's width under the bed. It is high summer, 9,000 years ago, on a flat plain in the land we now call Central Turkey. This is Çatalhöyük, one of the first cities on Earth. What did it feel like to wake here, to eat here, to grieve here, at the very beginning of the experiment we call the city? Not the rulers, not the temples. There were none. The answer is stranger than any palace, and it quietly overturns what we thought we knew about why human beings first chose to live pressed against one another. Stand on the plain and look. By about 7,000 BC, somewhere between 3,000 and 8,000 people lived on this single swelling mound of earth, rising roughly 20 meters above the marsh. From a distance, it looks like one vast organism of clay, hundreds of flat-roofed houses fused wall to wall with no gaps between them, no avenues, no marketplace, no grand gate, and here is the thing almost no one expects. There were no streets at all. You did not walk through Çatalhöyük. You walked over it. The roofs were the roads. People moved across the rooftops of the whole town and dropped down through openings into the warm dark of the rooms below. They had tamed sheep and goats. They grew wheat, barley, and lentils in the wetlands beyond the houses, and they hunted birds and gathered eggs from the reeds. They carried sharp black obsidian, traded from a volcano on the horizon, and worked it into blades that could still cut you today, and into mirrors, polished until a face stared back out of the stone. They built and rebuilt in the same spot for more than 1,000 years. Picture a girl crossing those roofs at first light. We do not know her name, but we know hundreds of children like her grew up here, so let her stand for them. She steps around clay ovens and bundled reeds and the open mouths of other people's homes. The mud is cool under her bare feet. Somewhere below her, smoke is finding its way up through a ladder hole. In the autumn, after the harvest, these rooftops would have been crowded. People drying grain, mending tools, talking across the narrow gap from one household to the next. The roof was the street, the workshop, and the meeting place all at once. Now, climb down to where she lives. It is dim. The only daylight falls through the square hole you came in by. There are no windows. The whole room is barely 25 square meters, and yet everything happens here: cooking, sleeping, working, dying. The walls are white, replastered again and again, layer upon layer, until in some houses more than 100 fine coats of clay have built up over the years. Near the ladder sits the hearth, the oven, the smell of yesterday's bread and old smoke. The ceiling above the fire is black with soot. Everything else, the people, kept clean. They carried their rubbish out to pits beyond the walls. Inside, the floors were swept, scrubbed, and plastered smooth. And beneath the raised platform along the wall, where the family eats and sleeps, lie the dead. Not in a graveyard outside the town. Here, inside. Folded into shallow pits under the floor, knees drawn up to the chest, sometimes a dozen or more crowded into a single house, generation resting beneath generation. They did not send their dead away. They kept them underfoot for as long as they lived in the room. This is the truth at the center of Çatalhöyük. Call it the house that kept its dead. Look at the walls themselves. Into the plaster they set the horns and skulls of wild cattle, aurochs, beasts far larger and more dangerous than any cow alive today. A single span of horns could stretch more than a meter across. They molded the heads in clay, painted them, and lived their whole lives beneath these silent animal faces. They painted other things too. Red hunters running after an enormous bull. Leopards turned to face one another. And on one wall, Vultures with great spread wings, leaning over small headless human figures, a scene many believe shows what was done to the dead before burial. The body left in the open, stripped clean, and only then brought down into the floor. On another wall there is a stranger image still, rows of squares beneath a twin-peaked shape that seems to spit dots into the air. James Mellart, who first dug here in the 1960s, believed it was a map, the town below, and the volcano of Hassan Dagh erupting above it. If he was right, it is the oldest landscape picture ever found. Other scholars disagree and see only a pattern. We may never know which of them is correct, and the dead did not always stay still. Sometimes long after a burial, the people would reopen the floor. They would lift out a skull, coat it in plaster, paint a face back onto the bare bone in red ochre, and carry it on, cradled into the arms of a newly dead relative, or moved into another house entirely. The archaeologist Ian Hodder, who led the modern excavations from 1993, called the homes with the most burials and the richest paintings the history houses. A few of them held the bones of more than 60 people. A house here was not only a shelter, it was an archive of everyone who had ever belonged to it. For a long time, the first diggers looked for what they expected a city to contain. Mellart saw shrines everywhere and a great mother goddess ruling over them, a clay figure of a seated woman flanked by 2 leopards found tucked inside a grain bin. But the decades since have told a quieter, more unsettling story. There were no temples, no priests, no palace, no rich quarter, and no poor one. The houses are almost all the same size, built to the same plan. Nobody, as far as the bones and the walls can show us, ruled anyone else. What held this place together was not power, it was the floor. The dead beneath the bed, the plaster pressed back into place by the same hands season after season, over the faces of grandparents and infants. The people did not stay because a king commanded it. They stayed because everyone they had ever loved was already here, folded into the clay, a hand's width down. We think we have left this behind. But notice what you still do. The photograph kept in a wallet, the urn on a shelf, the ring you cannot bring yourself to give away, the grave you return to on a date that means nothing to anyone but you. Across 9,000 years, the impulse has barely changed at all, to keep the dead within reach. The people of Çatalhöyük simply did openly, under the floor where they slept, what we now do in drawers and frames and quiet, private visits. They did not invent the city to escape the wild. They built it to stay close to the ones they had already lost. And every time you keep something that once belonged to someone gone, you are still living, just a little, in the house that kept its dead.